in the burning cradle of mankind, before the Imperium spanned 1,000,000 worlds, before the ecclesiarchy whispered prayers to a silent god, there was only a single will. The Emperor of mankind did not rise for glory, nor for worship, nor even for love of humanity as individuals. He rose because he believed humanity stood at the edge of extinction, and only ruthless unity could save it. The war for the solar system had ended. Terra was his. Mars was bound to him through the Adeptus Mechanica. Luna's gene vaults were broken open. Saturn's fleets were shattered. Mankind's cradle reforged into a weapon. But victory in soul was never the end game. It was merely the ignition spark. Beyond the warp storms that clawed at reality, beyond the howling madness of old night, humanity's lost colonies were scattered, enslaved, mutated, or worshipping false gods. Xenos empires carved the stars into territories. Warp entities fed upon despair. Civilization had rotted for 5,000 years, and the Emperor had run out of patience. He unveiled his greatest creations. The Primarchs, 20 superhuman sons, engineered from his own genetic code, each a demigod of war, intellect, and charisma. They were archetypes of conquest, each embodied an aspect of his design for humanity's future. Reason, fury, endurance, nobility, ambition, discipline, and then, in a single catastrophic instant, they were stolen. The powers of chaos, predatory intelligences lurking within the Imperium tore open reality and scattered the infant Primarchs. Worlds swallowed them. Cultures shaped them. Some would grow into saviors, others into monsters. The Emperor, for all his foresight, had been outmaneuvered. But he did not rage. He did not despair. He adapted. If he could not raise his sons at his side, he would find them. And before that, he would build an army. From the gene labs came the Legiones Astartes, the first space marines, no longer the unstable thunder warriors. These were refined instruments of annihilation, implanted with gene seed derived from the lost Primarchs, clad in ceramite and fury. They were not human. They were humanity perfected for war. And then the warp storms began to thin. For the first time in millennia, navigators could glimpse stable passages. It was as if the galaxy itself inhaled. The Emperor exhaled conquest. The Great Crusade erupted from Sol like a spear thrust into darkness. Expeditionary fleets surged outward, bearing iterators, remembrancers, mechanicum magi, and the unstoppable legions. Each world rediscovered was offered a choice: compliance or annihilation. Many bent the knee in awe, some resisted in pride. A few required extermination as examples. On the world of Olinar, orcs had built a sprawling empire of brutality and scrap metal gods. Their warlords commanded fleets that could drown systems in green fire. The Emperor marked it for future reckoning. On distant human worlds, cultures had evolved into strange reflections of old Earth. Some worshipped sun, others had succumbed to mutation. A few had turned to warp entities for protection. The Emperor's policy was mercilessly consistent. Unity under the Imperial truth. No gods, no superstition, no deviation. The Imperial truth was his secular gospel, a doctrine that denied the existence of gods and framed the warp as a natural, if dangerous, dimension. Religion, in his eyes, had nearly destroyed humanity before. He would not permit it to rise again. Yet even as he preached reason, he wielded powers that defied it. On the battlefield, the Emperor was apocalyptic. Witnesses spoke of golden light that burned away demonic manifestations, of psychic force that shattered titans, of a presence so overwhelming that even space marines felt like children. He was not merely a warlord. He was a weapon forged from the collective potential of ancient shamans. For millennia, he had walked among us in secret. King, scientist, philosopher, conqueror. Now he stood revealed at last, and still, something was watching. Within the warp, the ruinous powers stirred. Chaos gods had feasted on human emotions since the species first felt fear. Khorne drank war. Tzeentch whispered ambition. Nurgle nurtured despair. Slaanesh had been born from excess. and annihilated the ancient Aldari Empire in a single psychic scream. The Emperor's great crusade threatened their banquet. For every world he reclaimed without faith, he starved them. For every culture united under reason, he denied them worship. He sought not merely political dominance, but metaphysical defiance. And so they prepared their counterstroke. But first, the Emperor began to find his lost sons. On the death world of Fenris, he discovered Lemonross, raised among warriors and ice seas. On the ash-hooked mines of Chemos, he found Fulgrim, radiant and ambitious. On Macragge, Robut Gilliman ruled as a statesman beyond his years. Each reunion was a seismic event. The legions felt their gene sire's presence, like a missing organ restored. With each Primarch reclaimed, the crusade accelerated. Compliance rates soared. Entire sectors fell within years. Xenospecies were eradicated. Human empires were absorbed. The Imperium grew not by decades, but by weeks. Yet unity was never absolute. Some Primarchs adored their father. Others questioned him. A few feared the cold calculus behind his gaze. Elobet teminiswe. But he loved humanity's future more. And in quiet moments, there were those who sensed that they were tools as much as sons. Meanwhile, the Webway project began in secret beneath Terra. The Emperor sought to free humanity from reliance on warp travel. If he could seize control of the ancient Aldari Webway, a labyrinthine dimension insulated from chaos, humanity could traverse the galaxy without exposing itself to demonic predation. It was the ultimate insurance policy, but it required his constant presence on Terra, so he made a decision that would echo through eternity. He appointed Horus Lupercal as War Master. Horus, charismatic, brilliant, beloved by his brothers, was the first Primarch rediscovered, and perhaps the most favored. To him, the Emperor entrusted the continuation of the Great Crusade while he returned to Terra to labor upon the Webway. To the Imperium, it was a logical promotion. To the Warp, it was opportunity, because Horus was not merely a general. He was a symbol, and symbols, when corrupted, can shatter empires. Far from Terra, resentment festered. The Imperial truth rang hollow on worlds where miracles and nightmares were daily reality. The word-bearers, led by Lorgar, longed to worship the Emperor as a god, only to be publicly humiliated for their devotion. Seeds of humiliation took root. The Chaos Gods whispered. They promised truth beyond the Emperor's lies. They promised power without restraint. They promised recognition to those who felt overlooked. And slowly, almost imperceptibly, the galaxy tilted toward catastrophe. But that is yet to come. For now, in this moment of fragile supremacy, the Imperium stands ascendant. The solar system is secure. The Primarchs command their legions. The Great Crusade burns across the stars like a cleansing fire. The Emperor believes he is winning. He believes he can outthink gods. He believes that reason, enforced at the edge of a blade, can override the oldest impulses of the human soul. But the Warp does not fight with fleets. It fights with Tao. And somewhere in the vastness between stars, destiny coils itself around a single name: Horus. The war for the solar system forged the Emperor into an undisputed ruler. The Great Crusade transformed him into a galactic architect. Yet in striving to save humanity from damnation, he may have engineered the very conditions that will damn it. Because when you create demigods to conquer the galaxy, at the height of the Great Crusade, the Imperium of man did not merely expand, it dominated. Thousands of worlds brought into compliance. Xenos empires reduced to ash. Human civilizations reunited under a single banner. At the center of it all stood the Emperor of mankind. Distant now, withdrawn to Terra, laboring in secrecy beneath the Imperial palace, and at the front of the war machine stood Horus. Horus Lupercal, War Master of the Imperium, first found among the Primarchs, favored son, charismatic conqueror. He was everything the legions admired: decisive, brilliant, capable of inspiring absolute loyalty. When he spoke, entire sectors listened. When he fought, worlds fell. But command changes a being. The Emperor had once walked at the head of every great campaign. His presence had been unquestioned, absolute. Now he was absent. Silent. consumed by a hidden project no one fully understood. The webway beneath Terra demanded his psychic might. Every waking moment, he no longer marched beside his sons. And in that absence, perception shifted. The burdens placed upon Horus were immense. He negotiated compliance treaties, oversaw planetary purges, balanced rivalries among primarchs whose egos were the size of empires. Every victory bore his name, yet ultimate authority still rested with a father who would not explain himself. Then came Devon. On that distant world, a rebellion festered, one seeded not by politics, but by corruption. The War Master descended to crush it, as he had crushed countless others. It should have been routine. Instead, it became the fulcrum of fate. Horus was struck down by a blade laced with warp-tainted venom. Not a simple wound, but a spiritual infection. Apothecaries could not heal him. His superhuman physiology failed. As the War Master lay dying, panic rippled through the legions. And in that moment of vulnerability, the whispers became voices. Through ritual and deception, Horus was taken into the warp. There, in visions carefully orchestrated by the Chaos Gods, he was shown a future, a galaxy where the Emperor sat enthroned as a god, worshipped by trillions, while the Primarchs were forgotten. He was shown statues of the Emperor towering over humanity. He was shown a future Imperium steeped in religion, the very thing the Emperor had forbidden. And the cruelest part, the vision was true. The ruinous powers did not lie. They simply omitted context. They fed Horus' pride, his fear of abandonment, his growing suspicion that he and his brothers were tools to be discarded. Was the Imperial truth a lie? Why did the Emperor forbid religion, yet accept godlike reverence? Why return to Terra without explanation? Why leave the crusade in Horus' hands, if not to distance himself from its consequences? Doubt, once seeded, spreads like rot. When Horus rose from his sickbed, he was not the same. The wound had healed. The body was whole, but something inside him had shifted. His loyalty had cracked, not shattered, not yet, but fractured enough for darkness to seep through. The first to join him were those already disillusioned. Lorgarav, the word-bearers, humiliated for his devotion, had long sought spiritual truth. In the warp, he found it terrible and magnificent. Angron, broken by a life of slavery and rage, needed little persuasion to turn against a father who had denied him vengeance. Fulgrim, seduced by perfection and excess, was already walking the edge of damnation. One by one, legions began to tilt. The galaxy did not notice at first. Compliance actions continued. Xenos burned, parades were held. But beneath the surface, alliances shifted. Oaths were rewritten in secret. The moment the mask fell was the drop site massacre on Istvan. V-loyalist legions answered Horus' call to crush supposed rebels. They deployed in force, expecting unity. Instead, betrayal detonated in their ranks. Brother turned on brother. Bolters fired at point-blank range into allied armor. Titans shifted targets mid-barrage. Orbital bombardments rained down on their own. It was not a battle, it was an execution. 3 loyalist legions were nearly annihilated in hours. The Imperium's civil war, the Horus Heresy, had begun. Across the stars, astropaths screamed as warp storms erupted. Communication fractured. Entire sectors were isolated. The dream of a united humanity imploded in a storm of treachery. On Terra, the Emperor felt it. Every Primarch was psychically tethered to him in ways even they did not fully comprehend. When Horus turned, it was like a blade driven into the Emperor's soul. The Webway Project, humanity's safeguard against chaos, faltered as demonic incursions intensified. Magnus the Red, attempting to warn Terra through forbidden sorcery, inadvertently shattered the psychic wards. Demons flooded the hidden passages beneath the Imperial Palace. The Emperor was forced to abandon his secrecy. The truth could no longer be contained. Humanity was not merely at war with rebels, it was at war with gods. He took to the field once more, not across the stars, but beneath his own palace. For years, he fought an unending war in the labyrinthine tunnels, holding back tides of demonic entities. Above, Rogel Dorn, fortified the palace into the most formidable bastion ever constructed. Loyalist Primarchs Gilliman carved an empire of stability in Ultramar. The Khan waged lightning war against traitor fleets. Sanguinius, radiant and doomed, prepared for a confrontation he sensed would cost him everything. Meanwhile, Horus gathered his strength. The traitor legions, swollen with demonic pacts and dark blessings, carved a path toward Terra. Entire systems were butchered to feed warp rituals. Titans bore corrupted sigils. Space Marines, once paragons of discipline, now chanted litanies to blood and decay. Horus did not see himself as a villain. He believed he was liberating humanity from tyranny. He believed the Emperor's vision would reduce mankind to slaves under a psychic autocrat. He believed he was seizing destiny before it calcified into oppression. The tragedy was not that Horus was purely evil. It was that he was partly right. The Emperor's plan demanded control beyond comprehension. He would shepherd humanity's psychic evolution whether it wished it or not. He would starve chaos by eliminating belief, emotion, and superstition at their roots. It was salvation, but it was not freedom. As the traitor armada translated into the Sol system, the sky itself seemed to bleed. Billions watched as ships blotted out the sun. The final act had arrived. The siege of Terra would become the most catastrophic battle in human history. Palace walls kilometers thick would crack under bombardment. Primarch would face Primarch in duels that reshaped continents. Titans would collapse like dying gods, and at its heart waited a confrontation that would echo for 10,000 years. Father and son, creator and creation, the Emperor and Horus. Everything that began with the war for the solar system, every alliance, every gene-forged warrior, every proclamation of the Imperial truth, led to this singular inevitability. The Emperor had sought to conquer the galaxy before Chaos could claim it. Instead, Chaos had claimed his greatest champion, and as Terra burned, one question hung over the Imperium like a funeral shroud. If the Emperor could not even save his own son, how could he possibly save humanity? The answer would come in blood, in psychic fire, and in a sacrifice so immense that it would freeze the Imperium in a state of eternal war. But that is the final chapter